Next, we're going to use the ng module decorator to create our Angular module. Now, the boilerplate that you downloaded at the beginning comes with this app.module.ts, which has all these import statements from various parts of Angular, and we have this ng module decorator on something called an app module. So again, what I want you to do is delete all of the code and we'll go through it step by step. Now, the best way to think about a module is similarly to import statements and export statements in TypeScript or ES 2015. So first off, let's assume that we have our app component. So what we're going to do is import the app component, which is exported from here. So we have the app component, we're exporting it, and we now want to include it in our module. So what we'll do is then dot, and because we're in the current directory, we can do app.component. So you can see that we do not have to put .ts on the end. We can simply just reference app.component. So now we've imported our component into the module, it's actually time to create the module. Now we do this by importing something called ng, and notice that the fact that the capital N and we have a module with an uppercase M. So we do this from the Angular core. So we're importing this module and we now need to go and tell this component that it needs to be part of the module. All our module is a container that contains all of our components and any dependencies that we need, such as services for HTTP requests. They all go inside a specific module. Now let's assume we're going to export a class called app module. So this essentially we can leave empty and we just need to decorate it with this ng module. So again, we can do @ng module. And now we've told Angular that this app module is now an ng module. So this is a special decorator. Now, because we've actually imported our app component, we need to obviously go and tell index.html to bootstrap this app component. So this is where we actually tell the module to bootstrap this particular component. So all we need to do is create a property and reference app component. Now these can typically live anywhere on your ng module definition, so I typically leave them at the bottom because the root module, which is our first module that instantiates the Angular app, is the only module that contains the bootstrap property. Now to actually register this app component in the module, we need to create something called declarations. Again, this is just an array. So all we need to do here is just simply pass in our app component. So here we're importing app component, we're registering it in the module, and we're telling the module to bootstrap our app component, which then corresponds to this app root here. So that's nice and simple so far. Now Angular is split up into multiple modules, so each piece of Angular, such as the forms or HTTP, lives inside a different module. The ng module and the component decorators which we've used live inside the core module, which is why we're importing Angular/core. However, because we're building a browser application, we actually want to import something called the browser module. So we can do import browser module and then from @Angular, and now we want to go ahead and choose platform browser. So we're now importing the browser module, and we also need something called a common module. So we'll do common module, and we'll also import this from @Angular, but this time it's actually coming from common. Now, once we get started into the templates and creating things such as directives, this is where the common module comes into play. So typically, these are the two modules that you'll need to include in your base ng module before you can get going. So let's go ahead and import the browser module and the common module into this existing ng module. So what we can simply do is do imports, and it's just going to be an array again. We can import the browser module, and we can say that we want the common module as well. So this is essentially all we need to get going with our Angular application. Now you understand the ng module and the reasons behind it. If we're not using a browser, such as server-side rendering, we will import a different module. The common module gives us the directives that we'll need, which we'll come on to later in this course. And we're importing our base app component, which then gets used in the index.html. So at runtime, Angular will go and grab this ng module, find these particular imports, then we'll bootstrap our application based on our app component, and any further components live inside this declarations. So maybe we could extend our application. So in the future, we might want to add something like a dashboard component, and these things would live inside of here. So essentially, we'll just include a list of components. So we can do settings component, just to give you an idea of how we register particular components inside a module. So we'll remove these because we do not need them, and let's go back to the browser and make sure everything is working. So our application is still bootstrapped, we have the red background. So what we'll do is go back and actually remove this styles and continue through the course. So in the app CSS, all I'm going to do is simply delete this line and then save the file, and we'll just close this off.